Hello, babes. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new, welcome. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about Miss Miranda Hobbs, the pessimist. So let's get into it. Welcome to Iconically Iconic.
My God, Miranda, you are so judgmental!
So I wanted to discuss Miranda and how she had a lot of similarities to Miss Carrie Bradshaw, which makes sense because this friend group shared a lot in common, and that happens in friendship groups. I know plenty of people love Miranda because she was outspoken and usually the one to tell Carrie about herself more than the other girls ever did. But Miranda was extremely judgmental, bitter, and sometimes an outright mean girl. She had no problem talking down about other women's bodies or looking down on women who weren't like her or her friends. She was a complete Debbie Downer and always so damn pessimistic. It's annoying to watch, and it made me question how the girls were able to remain friends with her at some points. Now, I feel like Miranda may have had to be the responsible one growing up, always making the decisions and being put in charge. I feel like maybe she didn't have the space to be a carefree child and had to maybe help her parents, and you're the oldest, you're more responsible one speech that is always given to the eldest child. I don't know if that was the case, but Miranda always gave me that she was the oldest child, or could even be the sibling that was the youngest but was treated like a servant. That is also something that happens as well. Or it could have very well been the opposite, that she didn't have much structure growing up and now she structured and became a type A type of person, and her views changed around her because of what she witnessed as a child. Either way, I definitely think there was something that shaped her, but I still don't excuse her behavior. However, I do understand how those things could have an influence on how you are as an adult. Miranda would often lash out at her friends if they didn't act how she believed they should, or if she didn't approve their choices. And look, I'm a straightforward person. I'm very blunt. I'm a very blunt friend. But I believe it should come from a place of love. And you also know which friends can take that kind of bluntness. Of course, you don't want to be an enabler or watch your friends consistently make the same mistakes, but you should be a safe space for your friends while also maintaining healthy boundaries. But Miranda would make the same decisions or worse and then justify because she thought it was logical when she did it. Like the time she got upset at Carrie for going back to Big, which I understood because Carrie annoyed the hell out of me with her back and forth with Big. Some people tend to forget that when you have friends that truly love you and care about you, that your problems also weigh on them. It's a constant roller coaster, and if you're going to keep going back, why are you complaining? That's what a therapist is for. Then Carrie would have the nerve to be upset when her friends didn't support her going back to that toxic relationship, as they shouldn't have. However, Miranda did the same thing with Steve. Was he as toxic as Big? No. But let's not sit here and act like he had something to offer when he didn't. He was a burden constantly to Miranda, and he was a man-child she always had to look over. She accepted that kind of behavior because he was a quote-unquote nice guy, but it didn't mean he was a good partner. Miranda dated all kinds of sleazeballs and gave them grace while being judgmental when it came to her friends or other women and questioning their choices in men when hers were horrendous. Miranda would also want what she couldn't have when it came to men she had previously dated. She would get fixated on them the moment she saw they had moved on from her and were happy, which is a very toxic trait to have. Waiting until you see a person is happy and you want to come in and ruin it because you feel like their happiness belongs to you and that you had them first, not caring about the effects it has on them. When she saw Skipper was in a new relationship, she suddenly wanted him back. Not because she missed him, but because he was no longer chasing after her. Like, Miss Ma'am, you're willing to play the side chick or insert yourself into someone else's relationship just because you see they're happy now. People like that are the absolute worst because they use people for an ego boost, then discard them as if they don't have feelings, which is what she did to Skipper. She would often mock his romantic gestures. She would be sarcastic and treated his genuine affection with detachment. She was unable to accept kindness and vulnerability from a partner, which showed her emotional walls and also her fear of intimacy. But the moment they moved on, she felt like she can go and get them back, which I would have liked for them to dive into her previous relationship with her ex, because he clearly hurt her and was like if she was happy too much or someone was too nice, she had to run away from them. But she did the exact same thing with Steve. I may not be the biggest Steve fan, you all know this, but he was happy, he had moved on, and to be honest, I feel like Debbie was his match. They had way more chemistry than Steve and Miranda ever had. All Miranda and Steve had was sexual chemistry. Their conversations were always surface level and they didn't have much in common, if anything at all. Miranda knew this, but the moment she saw him happy with someone else, she decided she needed to break that up. That goes back to what I've said before. Miranda supported women only if they were like her friend circle or in her friend circle. And she looked for any little thing to nitpick at with Debbie because she was threatened, but also because she had to convince herself not to like her because she still had feelings for Steve. I feel like Steve couldn't be himself completely with a person like Miranda because she was so cynical and pessimistic about everything. I mean, she's the type of person who you'd say, I like pancakes with this in it, with chocolate chips. Those chocolate chips come from such and such, and you shouldn't eat chocolate chips. Like, girl, just let a person enjoy a piece of pancake in peace. It didn't matter what it was, she would take it and find a way to turn it negative, which is why Debbie, in my opinion, was perfect for him, but she was also out of his league. And when Debbie told Miranda how she loved Steve, Miranda took that as her opportunity to go and confess her feelings for him and kiss him. Child.
Felt like, girl, I'm sorry, Liz. Bye, girl.
The desperation. Not simply because she loved him, but because she was jealous as well. She couldn't say anything negative about Debbie, so instead she picked at little things like I said before, such as her having acrylic nails. What does her nails have to do with you?
So nasty.
And that's what happened.
So rude.
She can wear and do whatever she well pleased, as long as it wasn't hurting anyone. She was always threatened by beautiful women, and it always came out in such a nasty way, something that her and Miss Carrie had in common. And I think the only reason why Miranda didn't get as much hate or dislike as Carrie is because she was the financially stable career woman, but she often mocked and spoke down on women with her faux feminism that she believed only looked one way, which is why I will always love Jane Fonda. She is the epitome of feminism and advocates for women no matter what the woman looks like or how she dresses. Miranda didn't mind hurting another woman in the process of her getting back with Steve. People love Miranda because she was the no-nonsense friend, would check you when needed, and yes, sometimes it's necessary, but she was also hypocritical. She'd talk down on women she deemed stupid. She'd just pile on extra jealousy and sometimes straight venom, saying the nastiest things. Like that comment she made about models because the men she wanted them. I think Miranda carried a lot of internalized misogyny, and when you carry that as a woman, you don't realize you will attract a certain kind of man who feeds off of that. She felt like men would always choose other women over her, and instead of her dealing with that insecurity, she took it out on those women, constantly compared herself to other women. And yes, a lot of people tend to do that. However, in my opinion, it is not healthy. Jealousy is a very dangerous emotion, and people who don't know how to manage that emotion are very unpredictable and unstable. Miranda may have not acted violently on those feelings, but there are people who see nothing wrong with that behavior. They're the same people who sit online all day and make comments on social media of other women and spew vile, nasty comments, things they don't ever and will never have the nerve to say to a person's face, because they're filled with dark, poisonous energy and they want to project it onto others, wanting confident women to question themselves like they do because they haven't dealt with the bad seeds they have planted in themselves. Jealousy can consume a person, and that kind of negativity is dangerous when left unchecked, and you should never want it around you. But back to Miranda. I feel like she didn't have much in common with the girls aside from her issues with men. Of course, she wasn't a horrible friend, but she was the complete opposite of them. She was extremely judgmental, as I said before, and sometimes she was just plain old miserable. Everything the girls did, she felt the need to take issue with and acted as though she was their mother or superior. While Charlotte wasn't the biggest party girl and she was also judgmental sometimes, she knew how to have fun and she didn't feel the need to force her opinions on people. While Miranda was the type scanning a room to see who she could talk about. She just couldn't let people be. She had ridiculously high standards for women, especially when it came to what they should and shouldn't be doing with their lives. But when it came to men, her standards disappeared. She didn't mind if a man wasn't her equal as long as she liked him. That's exactly how she ended up with Steve, who had nothing going on for himself. She didn't like Skipper because he was too nice, even though he had a career, wasn't trying to move in, and wasn't buying a puppy and dropping it off for Miranda to raise that they got because he wanted to have a child because he thought it would be fun because he himself was a perpetual child. That puppy was a metaphor for who Steve was, a grown man who needed to be taken care of. And I can almost guarantee his mother had a lot to do with why Steve was the way he was. But her pessimism and always looking for the negative in any and every situation is why she attracted the people she attracted in her life, or would even project it onto people like Charlotte and Carrie who were different from her. Steve knew that Miranda was insecure, and what he did was use that to his benefit. And listen, you have to be very careful of what you speak. If you are constantly speaking this negative talk, you can't expect positivity and good. Even listening to certain music and you singing lyrics of things you don't even identify with, or not really paying attention to the lyrics you're singing but just vibing out, not realizing what you're speaking has an effect. Miranda did that a lot, and that's how Steve was able to enter her life. She was constantly speaking negativity into her life. Now, I know a lot of people give her flack for man bashing, which was unnecessary when directed at men who didn't deserve it. However, the way men treated women were deplorable, especially working in the corporate world in those days. They would treat women as if their voices didn't matter and as though they were doing women a favor for them entering their space. It was the boys' club at work, and they had no issue letting you know it, especially if they felt the woman was quote unquote unattractive. They felt it excused their behavior even more. Granted, it still goes on, but back then it was blatant, directly and disrespectfully in your face. And those kind of men still have a disdain for an educated career woman because while she may want him, she doesn't need him. While there are many moments that I agree with Miranda, especially with the way some men objectify women and her being upfront with her friends, she would throw away those things when a man paid her just enough interest. And do you really have those feelings and beliefs, or is it performative because you have some sort of bitterness when you're single? If objectifying and disrespecting women is so wrong, why is it okay for you to do those same things? Demean women and see them as objects, herself calling them just models and not humans. Miranda would also self-sabotage a lot. When Robert expressed his love for her, it may have been a little early, Robert, she destroyed that relationship and instead got back with Steve because of comfortability. It's like everything had to be negative and she was constantly pessimistic about any and everything, including Charlotte wanting to be traditional, as if it had any bearing on her life. However, Miranda was a necessary character to balance out the other girls. She would sometimes make you look at things differently, and she was relatable to women who didn't want to be traditional women and loved working and having a career, and that was their passion. The women who did want to have it all but struggled because while TV may make it look easy, it is not. Not impossible, of course, but definitely difficult with work-life balance and dating a man who doesn't want to compromise, and then adding children into that. Miranda, while often critical, judgmental, and sometimes outright rude, was strong, and she didn't fold when people thought they could treat her any kind of way. She was also the type of friend you could trust who wouldn't share your business when things would happen between you and her. And when things would happen between her and Carrie or Charlotte, she would never bash them or share what took place, and she would just work it out with them in private and not include the entire group. She also didn't feel the need to ruin people's big moments, even if she had some exciting news. She was a very giving friend and didn't throw things back in your face in an argument. She also had no problem apologizing and showing that soft, vulnerable side to her friends, even if it may have been hard for her to do so. She was there for Charlotte with her infertility, even if Charlotte wanted some alone time. She followed Charlotte home just to make sure she was safe and to let Charlotte know she was there, showed how caring Miranda was and could be. And with that being said, this video has come to an end. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Also, make sure your notification bells are turned on so that you always know when I upload. And I will catch you guys in the next one.